We never expected nothing like this. Never.
What in the hell is going on here?
Oh, look at this.
Oh, wow.
Going in right now.
We're going to run a camera in Aladdin's cave.
Oh my God, look at that.
For more than 2 centuries, Oak Island has stood as one of history's greatest enigmas, its treasures, traps, and secrets buried deep beneath the earth. Now, that silence is about to be broken. Rick Lagina has uncovered a sealed hatch, hidden away for over 200 years, leading into a dark, ancient cavern. Inside, shifting shadows reveal something extraordinary. A man-made wall carved with purpose, hinting at a story far older than the 18th century. Could this be a lost treasure vault, the work of the Knights Templar, or something far more sinister? High-tech scans confirm the impossible. The structure is no natural formation. As the crew readies to explore, danger looms in the unknown depths. Every step forward could bring answers, or awaken a secret better left undisturbed. Join us as we take you inside Oak Island's newest and most perilous discovery. Subscribe, because the next chapter could change everything we thought we knew. Since 1795, the island has whispered its secret. A young boy named Daniel McGuinness wandered through the dense trees of Oak Island and stumbled upon a strange depression in the earth. Beneath the surface, wooden timbers and layers of packed clay hinted at something man-made. The discovery would become known as the Money Pit, and it would ignite one of the longest-running treasure hunts in history. Over the years, generations of searchers arrived with dreams of unearthing gold, jewels, and long-lost relics. They uncovered coconut fiber buried deep in the Nova Scotia soil, rusted iron artifacts, and coins older than the nation of Canada itself. Each time, hope would surge, only for disaster to follow. Tunnels collapsed, machinery failed, and water, rushing in from mysterious flood tunnels, swallowed their efforts. Oak Island earned its reputation as a place where fortunes and lives were lost chasing shadows. But time changes everything. In the modern era, technology gave the treasure hunters a fighting chance. High-resolution sonar, precision drilling, and advanced radar scans allowed them to see into places their predecessors never could. Where pickaxes once struck blindly, now cameras and sensors probed the darkness with surgical precision. It felt as if, for the first time in centuries, the island's defenses might finally be breached. Then came the moment no one expected. Deep beneath the surface, hidden inside a natural cave, the team discovered something that defied explanation. A square wall, perfectly aligned edges, sharp, deliberate corners. In the natural world, caves are wild and uneven, shaped by water and time. This was different. The geometry suggested intention, planning, and human hands at work. The sight of that wall stirred old theories back to life. Could it be part of an ancient vault, the remains of a collapsed tunnel, or perhaps the entrance to a hidden chamber built centuries ago? For some, it evoked the legends of the Knights Templar and their rumored treasure, said to be hidden across the Atlantic during the chaos of medieval Europe. Others imagined pirates, Spanish explorers, or French military engineers, leaving behind their secrets in stone. Now, the team stands on the brink. The wall is there, silent, unmoving, and guarding whatever lies beyond. Each drill brings them closer to uncovering its purpose. But Oak Island has a way of turning hope into heartbreak. For over 200 years, it has given little and taken much. And yet, this time feels different. This time, the island may finally be ready to give up its truth. What lies behind that wall could rewrite history. Or it could be the cruelest trick the island has ever played. Either way, The world is watching, and the next move could change everything. As the weight of the discovery settled in, the team knew brute force alone would not solve this mystery. The square wall was a barrier, yes, but also an invitation, a silent challenge from whoever had placed it there centuries ago. If they were going to understand what lay beyond, they would need to see the unseen. That was when Steve, the team's data integration expert, stepped into the spotlight. Steve's reputation preceded him. Years of experience in mapping underground voids and submerged structures had given him an almost uncanny ability to turn empty darkness into a living, three-dimensional world. His tools were not shovels or drills, but sonar scanners, precision sensors, and advanced modeling software. And his latest mission was the most daunting yet: to build a complete 3D map of the hidden chamber they had dubbed Aladdin's Cave. The work began with the slow, methodical placement of sonar equipment deep within the access shafts. Each pulse of sound traveled into the stone and water, bouncing back to reveal a fragment of the hidden realm. Data streamed onto Steve's monitors, and piece by piece, the shape of the cavern began to emerge. Hours turned into days, the room filled with the soft hum of computers and the rhythmic ping of sonar. The crew gathered in tense anticipation, watching as vague outlines sharpened into clear, deliberate geometry. And then came the first revelation. This was not a random void. The scans revealed distinct edges, smooth surfaces, and, most surprising of all, openings that looked strikingly like doorways. The air in the war room seemed to thicken, straight lines, perfect corners, symmetry where nature usually worked in chaos. For a moment, no one spoke. Then the theories began to spill out, voices overlapping as excitement took hold. Could this be the entrance to a hidden treasure chamber, sealed away since the late 1700s? Or perhaps part of a sophisticated escape tunnel designed to smuggle valuables out of the money pit without ever surfacing? Steve rotated the model, the glowing wire-frame chamber spinning slowly on the screen. From above, the structure was even more intriguing. A main corridor appeared to lead into the heart of the cavern, branching into smaller passageways, each one disappearing into darkness. Were these side tunnels traps, storage vaults, or the final resting place of the treasure that had lured fortune seekers for over 2 centuries? The crew's minds drifted to the legends that had haunted Oak Island since 1795, whispers of the Knights Templar transporting sacred relics across the Atlantic, tales of pirate captains hiding plunder from the Caribbean, stories of secret societies burying knowledge and wealth too dangerous to be left in the open. Each theory seemed suddenly plausible in the face of what they were seeing. And yet, for all the clarity the 3D scans provided, they also deepened the mystery. The model showed paths, chambers, and possible entrances, but no hint of what lay inside them. No glittering gold, no piles of artifacts, just shapes in the dark, daring the team to come closer. Now, with the map complete, the next step would be the most dangerous yet. They would have to breach the wall, navigate the flooded tunnels, and enter a place no human had set foot in for centuries. One wrong move could collapse the structure or flood the chamber forever. One right move could change history. And as the team prepared their equipment, the island itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting to see if they were worthy of its greatest secret. The work at the garden shaft had been slow, grueling, and dangerous. For weeks, the crew from Dumont Contracting had been lowering themselves into the narrow timber-lined walls, reinforcing each section as they pushed deeper into the earth. Every foot gained felt like a battle won, and then at 95 feet, the battle shifted. The drill cut through a final layer of compact soil and hit empty space, a hollow. When the debris was cleared, the beam of a headlamp revealed the opening to a tunnel, nearly 7 feet high. It stretched into darkness, just wide enough for a man to stand upright. The air was damp and cold, carrying the scent of wood and earth long sealed from the surface. Lagina was among the first to peer inside. As the light played across the tunnel walls, something caught his eye. Circular wooden pieces, cut and fitted with precision. The shape and arrangement weren't random. They were familiar. Rick had seen such construction before, in sketches and old records from the earliest digs into the money pit. The same methods documented in the early 1800s. The same kind of craftsmanship that had fueled the Oak Island legend for over 2 centuries. The implications rippled through the crew. If this tunnel's design matched that of the original money pit, could they be standing on the threshold of the first ever excavation site? Could this be the link, the physical connection between modern efforts and the mysterious work of whoever had built the pit in the first place? The tunnel's alignment only deepened the intrigue. Survey data suggested it ran toward the very coordinates long suspected to mark the pit's original location. If correct, they were not dozens of feet away. They were mere yards from history. But as always on Oak Island, the promise of discovery came with danger. The timbers supporting the tunnel were ancient, possibly weakened by centuries underground. A single misstep could trigger a collapse, sealing whatever lay ahead forever. The decision had to be made. Push forward carefully, or risk losing the opportunity of a lifetime. Standing at the edge, Rick's light swept the darkness one last time. The tunnel seemed to beckon them inward, its shadows hiding the answer to a riddle written in wood, stone, and time. Were they finally within reach of the very spot where the first diggers struck treasure or trap over 200 years ago? The crew braced themselves. The next move could be the one Oak Island hunters had dreamed of for generations, or the last barrier the island would ever allow them to cross. While the Garden Shaft team wrestled with the Earth's depths, another drama was unfolding on the surface. On Lot 5, the air was sharp and still, the only sound the steady sweep of a metal detector cutting through the silence. Gary Drayton, Oak Island's seasoned treasure hunter, moved with the instinct of a man who had spent decades listening for whispers from the past. Beside him, Jack Begley scanned the ground, eyes alert for any hint of history waiting to be uncovered. The detector gave a sharp, clean tone, the kind that makes a prospector's pulse quicken. Gary knelt, his trowel slicing through the topsoil, revealing a sliver of weathered metal. It was unlike anything he had seen on the island before. Half of a Roman coin, worn smooth by time, but unmistakable in design. The engraving, though faint, hinted at an age far older than any colonial settlement. Experts later confirmed the staggering truth. It dated back to 300 BC. Before the weight of that discovery could settle, another signal called from just a few feet away. This time the find was even stranger, a decorated lead trade token, its surface etched with symbols reminiscent of ancient merchant currency. Its craftsmanship echoed the style of Roman-era markets, where such tokens were used as currency by traders moving between ports. Lab tests using XRF and X-ray diffraction peeled back the final layer of mystery. The lead's mineral composition was unlike the ores found in North America. Instead, its chemical fingerprint matched deposits from Iranian and Italian mines, a direct link to the ancient Mediterranean world. These weren't just random scraps of metal. They were travelers, carried across continents and seas, somehow finding their way to this small island off the coast of Nova Scotia. For the crew, the implications were staggering. The artifacts suggested that Oak Island may have been touched by a global trading network long before Europeans officially set foot in the Americas. And for some, the pieces fit into a much larger and more controversial theory, one that tied the island to the Knights Templar. The Templars, legendary for their wealth, influence, and rumored voyages beyond the known world, had been linked to Oak Island in whispers for decades. Could these artifacts be their calling cards, left behind on a secret transatlantic mission? Or were they remnants of an even older chapter in human history, one where Phoenician, Roman, or Persian traders reached these distant shores? As Gary turned the coin over in his hand, the fading sunlight caught its edge, flashing briefly as if in recognition of its journey. In that moment, Lot 5 no longer felt like a quiet patch of earth. It felt like a crossroads of worlds where the Mediterranean's ancient secrets had washed up on Canada's rugged coast. But one question remained, hanging in the air like the salt wind from the bay. How and why had they come here? While Lot 5 whispered of ancient trade routes and far-off empires, just beyond the tree line, another chapter of Oak Island's story was being unearthed. On Lot 13, the ground was thick with moss and shadow, hiding the outline of something that had puzzled researchers for decades, a 32-foot-long stone structure known to locals as the Great Quadrilateral. First mapped in the 1990s by the late Fred Nolan, Oak Island's legendary land surveyor and former owner, the formation had been shrouded in speculation. To some, it was simply the remains of an old foundation. To others, it was a marker, a deliberate signpost pointing towards something hidden. Now, with modern excavation tools and years of accumulated knowledge, the team was ready to peel back its secrets. Shovels bit into the earth, the rhythmic scrape of metal on stone echoing through the still air. Almost immediately, the dig began to yield more than just rock. From between the ancient stones came a dark, brittle fragment, charcoal. The piece was carefully bagged for carbon dating, a process that could place it firmly on the island's vast timeline. If the results showed it predated the 18th century, it would mean this structure was older than any known colonial settlement here. Moments later, Jack Begley brushed away soil to reveal something heavy and metallic. At first glance, it appeared to be nothing more than a rusted lump. But under closer inspection, its shape and density told another story, a possible fragment of a cannonball. Whether it had been fired in battle, used as ballast, or hidden for another purpose entirely, its presence hinted at human activity tied to conflict or defense. The discoveries didn't stop there. A scattering of pottery shards emerged from the trench, their edges worn, yet their patterns faintly visible. Glass fragments soon followed, their tint and thickness suggesting craftsmanship from an era long before the 1700s. These were not modern debris. They were echoes from a time when the world's powers vied for dominance across oceans, each seeking to secure wealth, territory, and secrecy. As the trench deepened, the Great Quadrilateral's stones took on a new. They weren't just lying in random formation. Many appeared to be deliberately placed, forming patterns too precise to be the work of nature. Some stones were aligned in ways that hinted at hidden cavities or spaces beneath. Could this be a cache site, carefully arranged centuries ago to conceal valuable goods, documents, or even treasure? The theory gained momentum as the team studied Nolan's old maps alongside the fresh excavation data. The alignment of the quadrilateral seemed to point toward other key sites on the island, as if it were part of a larger network of markers. Fred Nolan had always believed that the island's surface features were connected, clues in a puzzle only visible to those who looked from the right angle. Now, standing over the partially exposed structure, the crew felt the same pull Nolan must have felt decades earlier. Each artifact, each stone, each line on the map seemed to whisper the same thing. Something was hidden here, and someone wanted it to stay hidden. The question was, had the centuries preserved that secret, or had time already stolen it away? The search had been methodical, careful, each move calculated to avoid triggering Oak Island's notorious defenses. But with the tantalizing discoveries from Lot 5 and Lot 13 still fresh in their minds, the team turned their attention back to one of the most enigmatic sights yet, Aladdin's Cave. The cavern had already teased them with glimpses of geometry, with walls and edges that nature could not have shaped alone. Now, they were ready to go deeper. For this, they would deploy one of the most advanced tools in their arsenal, the DASS 710 Sonar Echo Logger. Compact, yet incredibly precise, it could scan in every direction, building a detailed 3D model of whatever lay in the darkness. Lowered carefully into the access shaft, the device began its slow, deliberate sweep. Sound waves rippled outward, bouncing off stone, sediment, and something else. On the monitors in the war room, faint outlines began to appear. At first, the shapes were fragmented, but with each pass, the image sharpened. And then it emerged, a hollow space, perfectly contained, hidden deep within the earth. It was a chamber. The map revealed more than just its shape. Narrow passageways seemed to stretch from the chamber into the darkness, branching toward other parts of the island. Some of these potential tunnels pointed directly toward the coordinates of the original money pit. If the connections were real, they could represent the first physical link between the money pit and another underground structure, a breakthrough that searchers had dreamed of for over 2 centuries. The room filled with a charged silence. Every eye was locked on the glowing wireframe on the screen. The possibilities were staggering, but so were the risks. Drilling deeper could allow them to breach the chamber and finally see what it contained. But it could also unleash the very threat that had thwarted generations before them: flooding. Oak Island's underground network was treacherous. One wrong penetration, and the tunnels could fill in minutes, drowning the chamber, erasing centuries-old evidence, and ending their search in an instant. Yet the lure was impossible to ignore. Rick Lagina studied the map in silence, weighing every factor. The lines on the screen were more than just data. They were an invitation. Somewhere behind them could be artifacts, gold, or even the proof that Oak Island's mystery stretched far beyond legend. But one move too soon, and the island might slam the door forever. The crew gathered at the edge of the shaft, the hum of the sonar fading as the scan completed. The chamber was there, waiting. The tunnels were there, tempting them. The risk was real, but so was the chance to solve the greatest treasure hunt in history. And as the drill rig roared to life, the island seemed to watch, silent and unblinking, as another chapter in its 200-year battle with man was about to be written. The finds from Lot 5 had been extraordinary on their own. A Roman coin from 300 BC, a decorated lead trade token tied to Mediterranean mines in Iran and Italy. But taken together, they posed a question so large it shook the very foundation of Oak Island's accepted history. For over 2 centuries, the mystery had been framed by the events of the late 18th century, when 3 young men first uncovered what became known as the Money Pit. Every theory, every dig, every costly expedition had started from that point in time. But what if that date was wrong? What if the story didn't begin 200 years ago, but over 2,000? If the Roman and Mediterranean artifacts were authentic, and early lab results suggested they were, Oak Island's timeline would have to be rewritten entirely. No longer would it be a footnote in colonial lore. It would become a waypoint on a global map of ancient exploration. Imagine for a moment ancient merchant ships braving the unknown Atlantic, guided only by the stars, driven by the promise of new trade routes and untapped riches. These weren't colonial settlers or pirate crews. These were the world's first international traders, moving goods and ideas between continents centuries before European empires claimed the New World. Could Oak Island have been one of their stops? A hidden supply cache? A place to store valuables far from the eyes of rivals? And then there was the other theory, the one that had haunted Oak Island's legend for decades, the Knights Templar. Their name alone carried the weight of secrecy and myth, a powerful medieval order rumored to have crossed the Atlantic carrying treasure and sacred relics after their persecution in the early 1300s. Could the Roman-era artifacts be proof of an even older horde that the Templars themselves inherited and hid here? The implications were staggering. If Oak Island was tied to ancient Rome or the medieval Mediterranean, then its story was no longer just a Canadian mystery. It was a piece of world history. It meant that somewhere beneath its shifting soil and flooded tunnels lay evidence of civilizations that reached farther, sailed earlier, and hid their secrets more deeply than scholars had ever imagined. Standing on the windswept shoreline, Gary Drayton turned the coin over in his gloved hand once more. Its edges were worn, its design faint, yet it carried with it the weight of centuries, a silent witness to journeys and purposes lost to time. If the artifacts were genuine, then Oak Island was not simply guarding a treasure, it was guarding proof that history, as we know it, is incomplete. And unlocking that proof could change everything we think we know about the world's past. The weeks of digging, mapping, and debate had all been leading to this moment. The garden shaft was now deeper than it had been in decades, its timbers groaning softly as the crew prepared for the next phase. The newly extended tunnel yawned open in the beam of their headlamps, 7 feet high and leading straight into the unknown. Rick Lagina stood at the edge, his boots resting on the damp wooden planks. He didn't speak right away. He just stared into the blackness, as if willing his eyes to pierce it. When he finally turned to the crew, his words were quiet, but they carried the weight of belief. "I think we're only feet away from it," he said. "The original dig site, and maybe the truth." Around him, the air was thick with anticipation. Every find over the past months, the Roman coin, the Mediterranean trade token, the cannonball fragment, the pottery shards, the mapped chamber of Aladdin's cave, had pointed to something extraordinary lying just out of reach. Now, for the first time, the distance could be measured in yards, not theories. The equipment was readied in silence. Ropes coiled neatly on the damp ground. A portable pump was checked and rechecked. Lights flickered on, casting long shadows across the tunnel mouth. Somewhere beyond that darkness could be the final link between the modern search and the mysterious work of whoever had first carved into Oak Island's depths centuries, perhaps millennia, ago. The camera rig was lowered slowly, its metal frame creaking as it descended into the black. The water at the bottom rippled with each movement, droplets falling from the shaft walls in a steady, echoing rhythm. Each drip seemed louder than the last, marking time like a clock counting down to revelation. Rick's eyes never left the monitor as the lens pushed forward, the tunnel's jagged walls closing in on either side. Behind him, the rest of the crew leaned in, their breath shallow, their faces lit only by the ghostly glow of the screen. No one dared speak. Somewhere ahead, the tunnel bent out of sight. The signal flickered, the image blurred, and then a faint glimmer of something beyond the shadows. A shape, a wall, maybe wood, maybe stone, maybe... The feed stuttered, the image froze. In the war room and in the shaft above, the same thought gripped every mind. This could be it, the place where the mystery began. The final door between them and Oak Island's truth. The last shot lingered on the black water, the camera hanging motionless, swaying slightly in the void. The crew stood frozen, the air electric with what might come next. Whatever was waiting down there had been hidden for centuries. In moments, they might finally see it, or, as so often on Oak Island, the island itself might decide otherwise.